Right, so I have been screaming, I tell you, at the telly this morning, and to some extent yesterday as well. Surely not, Damo, some of you might be thinking, you're such a mellow fellow, but it's true, screaming at the abject stupidity coming yesterday from Labour's Lucy Powell, and this morning by Sir Kid Starver and a Whig Rachel Reeves, over the staunch refusal for Labour to deal with child poverty, locked in by their self-imposed, entirely made-up fiscal rules. And the fact in Powell's case, she went as far as saying there's no money left, aping the excuse the Tories have been making over a stupid note left by the last Labour government for the last 13 years. Honestly, I have to wonder if they're always this stupid or whether they're just making a special effort right now. It wasn't true then, and it isn't true now. I am, of course, talking about the two-child benefit cap and the universal free school meal pledges made by Sir Kid Starver before he decided he'd rather leave kids left to starve by the Tories to continue to do so under his government, should he unfortunately get there. Well, the fallout from his fiscal choice, that's exactly what the media should be calling it, that's what they should be hammering Labour over, their fiscal choices, they aren't fiscal rules at all, because they're only making them up themselves, is still happening. The hashtag Sir Kid Starver is still trending on social media now into its second day of doing so, because they won't budge an inch and more people are talking about it than ever. We were told yesterday as well that there was this big showdown planned with Starmer and his shadow cabinet, but that's turned into a complete damp squib as well. With Jonathan Ashworth, the shadow work and pension secretary, this is the same guy who called the two-child cap heinous just days ago, was now defending Starmer's position for all he was worth. And where in the shadow cabinet the left might hope for at least Angela Rayner to speak up, she apparently just sat there in complete silence. Talk of a leadership challenge that has also been circulated is for the birds, with this level of spinelessness amongst MPs elected to challenge such policy, even such policy within their own party, and completely failing to do so. Anyway, let's address the Lucy Powell idiocy from yesterday first. Powell got quite shrill and flustered when being interviewed by ITV, saying about Sir Kid Starver's U-turn on this. There are lots of things that he would like to do. There are lots of things he would like to reverse. But the economic reality means that we just can't. To coin a phrase, there's no money left. That the cost of government borrowing, as inflation and interest rates rise, that cost of government borrowing just keeps going up and up and up all the time. We've had COVID, we've had Ukraine, we had the disastrous mini-budget of Liz Truss last year, and so now we face this harsh economic reality that we're in today that means we just can't make promises we can't afford to keep. Right, let's shred this to bits, because Powell must think we came down in the last shower. But unlike her, we didn't all end up raining down on the stupid tree and hitting every stupid branch on the way down it. We can't make promises we can't afford to keep. Well, you should have told Sir Kid Starver that before he started making pledges and promises he has consistently broken at every turn, seemingly every other month over the last 3 years with each and every new relaunch of his career. There are lots of things Starver would like to do, is there? Well, we know that. He was doing something he wanted to do just yesterday, because whilst you were making a prat of yourself to ITV, like he was off going to see Tony Blair and kissing his backside as hard as possible, because he is the heir to Blair, and Blair absolutely bloody knows it. Look at them together. The Kid Starver and the Kid Bomber. Special guest appearance, incidentally, as well, by Cambodian carpet bomber Henry Kissinger, too. Blair reshaped the country, his supporters will squeal, and you're absolutely right, he did. Just not this one, because Iraq was never the same afterwards, was it? Anyway, Powell bleats on that there's a lot of things he'd like to reverse, too, and indeed, we know that as well. The leadership of this guy, for one thing, but also the increased membership he brought in with them, kicking as many of the left out as possible. Government borrowing keeps going up, she says, and if done to invest isn't a bad thing, which is what she should be saying, because who do we borrow from? Ourselves. We owe ourselves, so it's not even a debt really, therefore, and interest rates and inflation aside, they lend to themselves at very favourable rates. You want to get inflation down? Tax the rich then. Taxation controls inflation. I say it all the time. That is all taxation does, because it's true. Starver has ruled that out. We can't make the rich pay more, we'll starve the kids instead. COVID was mishandled. Okay, fine. Again, tax the rich, because taxation really is the only route out of it, and some of them made an awful lot of money during that time. There's Ukraine, she said. Well, we found £4.8 billion to give to them, so how can we afford that and not afford to feed our kids then? Are you saying we shouldn't have helped Ukraine? Are you saying it was irresponsible to? Are you saying if NATO suddenly ordered boots on the ground, after you take power, you wouldn't immediately go to war? You'd turn around and say, sorry, no can do, the fiscal rules. You do that when your boss raids the dressing up box to look like this? I think not. As for the Liz Truss disaster budget, are you seriously comparing lifting 250,000 kids out of poverty to being as irresponsible as her economics? Are you? Because that's what it sounds like. Treating us for fools. Though in Powell's case, I can completely believe she thinks this. If the Tories really wanted to wrong-foot Labour with this narrative, they'd suddenly find some cash for some pay rises, or more likely in their case, tax cuts. And Powell will be stood there scratching her head trying to work out where the money has come from, I'm sure. She's a Manchester MP. The child poverty rate on her patch is 42%, almost 1 in 2. But sorry is all she can say to her constituents. That won't feed kids. Absolute tool of a woman. But worse was Rachel Reeves this morning. She was on the media rounds and on BBC Breakfast. She was asked by Sally Nugent about that tweet of Sir Kid Starver's that I mentioned in a video the other day, where he had said in 2020, we must scrap the inhuman work capability assessments and private provision of disability sanctions, e.g. ATOS, scrap punitive sanctions, 2-child limit and benefits cap. Nugent put it to Reeves, how can the public trust you with the public finances when you change your mind about what you say? To which Reeves immediately came out with, well, the most important thing is that the public can trust Labour with the public finances. What? Did you just hear anything you were just asked? You literally cannot be trusted on anything you were just told, yet you think you can be trusted with the money? All you keep saying is we can't do this, can't do that. So far I'm waiting for what you can spend on, but we don't hear about that. What are you spending on that you're so busy ruling out spending on stuff that seems really quite important to us? Anyway, she wasn't finished. She repeated much of what Powell had said about the dire state of the country's finances, which isn't wrong, but it's the same mantra the Tories came out with. And if you're just going to do what they say, then how are you fixing it when they clearly aren't either? Powell coined that phrase, there's no money left, and Reeves might as well have said it as well, because it is George Osborne's narrative to a T. Osborne, of course, rates Reeves to be the next Chancellor, so that really does say it all. She was also asked about the free school meals issue being scrapped, to which she said, I can't see where the money's going to come in from. Well, print it then, you ruddy balloon. It's where all the money comes from. Tax wealth, bring down inflation, give yourself room to print more money to spend. Bring capital gains tax up to the same level as income tax. That'll give you another £15 billion in tax revenue, giving you another £15 billion of new money you could print as a big fat for instance. This is where money comes from, and I especially hate it when this sort of drivelish conversation comes from Reeves, because she has a master's in economics and she knows all of this. She just also happens to be a right-wing MP and doesn't believe in changing anything from how things are run today, because ultimately it's not for us that she plans to run the economy for. She faced off against Martin Lewis on GMB this morning as well, though, and he was quick to point out that that fiscal rules business that she keeps talking about is all fine, and spending restraint where appropriate makes sense, but that it is arbitrary and it is choice, and that her argument for spending restraint, fiscal restraint, can be made against any government policy anywhere, and therefore it is a political choice Reeves is making, that Labour is making, to not fund universal free school meals and ending the 2-child benefit cap. And he's bang on. Reeves could only point to what the last Labour government did in bringing kids out of poverty and bleat about the need to grow the economy. Well, how do you grow the economy by not spending anything to invest? Look, we print the money to spend on stuff. Everything is paid for that way. Tax gets taken to effectively destroy new money, keeping inflation down. So growth appears when the money you spend is spent wisely in investments and brings in an economic return. More money back in than you spend out. That happens when you invest in ordinary working class people. Because when they have more to spend, ordinary working class people who spend the majority of their incomes, they spend it in our economy. That creates jobs, more taxes coming in. It's logical, it's not hard to follow. When you don't invest in people, when you starve them as kids, for example, it affects their development. They don't learn as well. They do worse at school. They end up in poorer paid, lower paid jobs, get sick more often, and end up relying on benefit top-ups and lean on the health service more. It is false economy, therefore, to not invest in them. It is completely Labour's choice right now to not do this. Heck, she pointed to the last Labour government for lifting kids out of poverty. And this is one of those rare examples of where I'll give Tony Blair some props, because Sure Start was brilliant. Tax credits gave people more money to spend in the economy. It was not a bad investment in people. Didn't excuse all the other stuff he did, but this genuinely helped. The Tories have wrecked all of that, and Starmer and Reeves wouldn't do anything to fix that now. They wouldn't even go as far as Blair did. It's a safe assumption to make because they're refusing to invest completely in the next generation. If that isn't short-sighted, stupid politics, I don't know what is. Martin Lewis brought up the Sir Kid Starver hashtag again too. So again, that's been mainstreamed, and deservedly so. So more so because it won't affect them. MPs can claim for their kids £5,500 per child for up to 3 children under the age of 18. It's utterly amoral of them to say we can't afford to lift the 2-child benefit cap when it blatantly doesn't apply to them, and Starmer, Reeves and Powell all personally benefit from this themselves. According to research by economist Richard Murphy, right now, for the UK population to just replace itself going forwards, it requires each woman to have 2.1 children. Therefore, the 2-child benefit cap is driving a population decline. Currently, the stats work out as 1.7 children per woman in England and 1.3 in Scotland. We're going to become more reliant on inward migration as a result of this policy. Reeves talks of responsibility in terms of restraint, but actually the first duty is that there should be enough to go around to create the money that is needed and not to deny it to people on false pretenses. A Starmer-led government will be no different to this Tory one because the politicians, they're all the same again. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. New content out daily. Meanwhile, here's another video recommendation where Reeves explains what she means by her fiscal rules and exposes them for what the press haven't picked her up on over, that they're complete nonsense. And I'll catch you hopefully on the next vid. Cheers, folks.